Hello everyone and welcome to the Mania 7K World Cup for 2018. I am Lusty Platypus, joined with the Toaster.
Hello, how are you doing tonight? Well, I guess it's more of an afternoon for you, but for me it's night, so...
Yeah. Today we're going to be doing the group stage, Australia versus Chile.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting match, at least I would hope. I believe Australia is the low seed, and I'm not sure about Chile. I'd assume they're mid-seed, but I'm not completely certain.
Top?
Oh, are they? Okay.
Double check that. Yeah, so Chile's top seed, they're the 5th seed overall, and Australia is mid at 15th seed overall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the other team in their group is Sweden, who are the bottom seed at 22nd.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess this could be a close match regardless. I think we've seen pretty consistently that the teams made for 7Key, even between the top and mid seeds especially, have been really, really close in terms of overall skill, especially now that it is in a 2v2 format rather than the 3v3 that most of the other World Cups or the 4v4 that the standard World Cup uses. It really allows the teams that don't have quite as many players as the others to still stand out and show off their skills and give the higher seeded teams worry about, as opposed to what might have happened if it was 3v3.
Well, we've definitely seen a lot of kind of underdogs perform quite well, especially Argentina. I believe they actually beat Switzerland.
Yes, they
and
did.
Managed to go through groups.
Yeah, they brought them to tiebreaker and won as the low seed in their group. And we even saw in the match Canada versus Brazil that a mid-seed Canada was in the lead against Brazil, which was the top seed, 3-2, and just barely ended up losing after being brought to tiebreaker. So anything can really happen in these matches, especially when we see matches like between the top seeds and the mid seeds.
Yeah, so definitely not out of the question for Australia here. Although Chile is also extremely strong of a team, even though they're only 2 players. So it's not going to be an easy one for Australia, but I don't think it's impossible.
Actually, are they the only top-seeded team with only 2 players, or are there some other ones with only 2 players?
I think they are the only one with 2.
That's pretty impressive, I'd say. I have definitely, I'm somewhat familiar with Scallon and Gonzalez's skill in general. So I obviously know that they're very skilled players, but it's more of the minute details of whether they're good at specifically LNs or whether they're stronger at it than other teams, or whether they really just shine in the accuracy and speed department and whatnot.
Yeah, I think Australia has a bit of inside info because Chile's already played their other match versus Sweden, so they could have already looked at the MP links to kind of know where the strong points are. But Australia hasn't played a match yet, so this is their first time showing on the group stage map so far.
Yeah, and for anyone who's wondering, there are 2 matches going on in this block. It's this one, Australia versus Chile, which we're about to get into the warm-ups for. And then the other one going on at the same time right now is USA versus Japan. So, and once these 2 are over, which will be in about an hour, that'll be the end of this block, where we'll be waiting another 8 hours or so for the next block of matches to start.
Yeah, so it's a fairly short section here.
Getting into this warm-up for Australia versus Chile. I don't know who chose this. Chile, given how well they're performing already on it. We can already start to see why Chile is top-seeded in this. The fact that their accuracies and combos are staying so strong in a map this densely packed, with this densely packed chord stream, is definitely showing why they deserve the seeding they got.
Yeah, it's really showing here. obviously a map like this is a lot more difficult than what we're going to see at the group stages, which is why we're seeing the players on the Australian side struggle quite a bit.
Yeah, so this is indicative of what's going to happen in the map. It gives you an idea that Chile is kind of a bit of a step above Australia in terms of overall skill in 7 key. At least these two players specifically with us from Australia, since we haven't seen the other two.
Yeah, I think Sankansuki is a bit more on this level, but maybe his accuracy not as good for the earlier stages. So if Australia goes a bit further, we might see him appear a bit more often.
But they've got to make sure they can fight through Chile and Sweden, make sure they can get past groups before they can even think about getting to the higher level stuff.
Almost coming to the end of the first warm-up here. Evia's actually failing out.
Kite's almost failing, getting down to below half of his HP. But like we said, this is much harder than anything that's in the actual group stage pool. So this won't give an accurate representation of what will happen. But that was the first warm-up, and we should be getting into the second one. I don't know actually who's won. Well, I think the last one was Chile's, and we're getting now into Australia's warm-up.
Yeah, I think that would have been Chile's. I don't think that Australia would have picked that, because obviously they struggled quite a bit on it.
Interesting song choice for the second warm-up.
Yeah, I believe this one is Australia's warm-up here.
Anatan Strelka. This one will likely be a bit lighter in terms of overall difficulty, so maybe this will give a more accurate representation of what we might be seeing in terms of like matchups when it comes to the actual, match after the warm-ups.
Yeah, sometimes playing specific warm-ups to kind of gather information could be a good idea. I think we've seen a bit of that in a few earlier matches where players would pick really heavy long note charts to kind of see where the other team stands on those types of patterns.
Yeah, and I mean, it can always be a good idea if you want to gauge information about your opponent, especially if you don't know anything about them. Like, I think it's especially useful if you pick something like anti-meta, if you want to call it that. Like, say, a full-on release chart that maybe isn't too difficult, so you can see how the opposing team is able to do on something like that and gauge whether or not you feel comfortable going with a chart like that in your initial choices.
Yeah, combine that with kind of the ban choices that the opposing team makes, and you can do a fair bit of information gathering on where your opponent stands, even if you know kind of nothing about them. So it can be quite important if you want to make it that, but some teams kind of just pick whatever they want to have fun.
Yeah, that's true. And if the only unfortunate part about trying to gather information about a given team is that if you're trying to figure out information based on or about, say, their SV skill, which isn't particularly important in this group stage pool or in this map pool in general, since there's only one SV pick, and if the team is uncomfortable with it, they'll just ban it straight out. But yeah, if you're trying to gauge how good a given team is at that, it's pretty hard to do just from a warm-up. But I guess that's where the ban analysis comes in, where you might decide, hey, they banned an SV chart, maybe they're uncomfortable on this stuff, and then you go with one of the other ones in the pool, for example.
Yeah, it's not an exact science, but it can be good for kind of estimation. We're seeing this chart is quite a bit more simpler than the previous warm-up.
This one likely just giving Australia an idea of the overall accuracy of Chile, but also giving them an opportunity to get used to the accuracy-based play that we'll be seeing from the group stage pool.
It actually looks fairly close in terms of accuracy. Both Scarlet and Kites actually missed at exactly the same time then.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty clear that Chile in general has higher accuracy. Both players on Chile being about 0.5% higher than their respective Australian.
Evios actually holding a combo there, which is interesting.
The only one holding the combo right now. Scum dropping again. Actually, scores are pretty close right now, given the accuracy difference. Seeing as Australia's a bit, kind of behind. Although, with that drop, I feel like that lead's probably just going to increase.
Yeah, it's likely going to increase a bit more now. This map, I think, is also just a tiny bit harder than the group stage as well, given the density.
Yeah, it is a little bit harder, but it can still be useful for just, getting yourself in the mood of playing these, or getting your fingers used to it, I suppose.
Call it a warm-up for a reason.
This is also notably a bit longer than every map in the longest map in the free mod choices is 2 minutes 38 seconds. Having any map over 3 minutes, as this one seems to be, will not only just give you an idea of the consistency of yourself and your opponents, but will make your stamina more capable of, holding on to the shorter songs that you'll end up playing in the later match.
Yeah, most of the maps are around the minute 50 mark, or 2 minutes-ish.
And some of them are even, barely over a minute.
Yeah, I believe Heki Reki is actually only 8 seconds over a minute.
Although something interesting is that both of the warm-ups that we've seen from these two teams didn't really focus on anything specific skill-wise. I guess they weren't LN focused, or but obviously Chile's was more speed oriented, speed and chord streaming oriented.
Yeah,
but we don't really have an idea of the LN skill of either team just based off of these warm-ups. So bans might be interesting to see. Obviously, I'd expect the SV map to be banned, since that has been a relatively popular ban throughout the entirety of group stage. But the other ban is kind of up in the air, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of curious to see where. I think whoever bans first is probably just going to ban the SV pick and kind of not look back on it. And then we'll see where it goes from there. It probably depends on which team has the second ban.
Ooh, 25 roll from the Australians, and Chile. Scotland rolls 69. Nice. So Chile wins the roll. That means Australia bans first. Chile gets second ban and first pick. So you might expect just Australia to ban straight up the Sorry about that. SV pick, and then have Chile ban maybe a long note map. I know in 4K they weren't particularly comfortable with long notes, so maybe they'll just go with a Kikoe Maska or the Iyohoi ban. But the first ban does come out from Australia, which is Sakusin. And off the top of my head, I'm not sure what map that is.
Sakusin is the SV pick.
Okay. Yeah, so exactly what we expected. And then, as I expected, Chile bans Kikoe Masuka. So, the SV pick, and arguably the harder of the two main LN picks, has been banned out. And I guess the 1 minute 8 second song, I guess that is what I'd expect to come out from Chile, given their performance on the first warm-up. But
actually going to go for Camellia Prelavis though, which is more of a general pick. It's not any particular skill. It's kind of similar to the previous one that Australia just had, which they won on, so it kind of makes sense.
Prelavis in general has been a pretty popular pick overall. It kind of is an all-rounder, if you might call it that. It has some nice technical elements, some sweeps that can be pretty tough, but also some interesting LN play that comes in. And overall, if you feel like you just can outclass your opponent in just a bit in everything, you might end up with a huge lead on a map like this.
Yeah, so all-rounder skill set coming into play for this pick. Coming from the Japan versus United States match, we actually have, I believe, the first pick, Japan losing to United States by 1,128 points on Heki Reki.
Really close match, but US does end up taking that. So, there's, I believe, Ivios. Oh, they were trying to switch someone out and they started.
It looks like that's weird.
So I'd assume that's just going to be an abort, but I'm not sure. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
They wanted to switch out. The Australia wanted to switch out one of the players for Sankansuki. I'm sorry.
Sankansuki.
That is. Thank you. Wanted to switch him out and didn't get enough time, or were prematurely pushed into the match. So had an abort. We'll be getting into this though.
Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly on the accuracy from Sankan, but we'll have to see. We saw Evios having quite good accuracy, but not quite good enough to catch up with Chile, so we'll have to see if Sankan can make up the difference there.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe there's also the Suki just feels more comfortable with the varying patterns like this. Like, this is definitely a map for a player who's well-rounded in general. And Scalum already finding a break. This is going to give Australia at least a bit of a lead right out of the gate. And actually, the accuracy lead is already well in favor of Australia, which is a very surprising start.
Yeah, it looks like Sankan's actually filling that gap that I was just talking about with the accuracy. He's holding 99.7 kind of early on, so nothing too major yet, but we'll see if he holds it throughout the long.
And honestly, if they can keep at least relatively good accuracy like they are right now and avoid dropping combo, they might be able to just steal this point away from that simple mistake that Scala made early on.
Yeah, it looks like Scotland's actually having a few 200s kind of here and there as well, which isn't really helping either.
Yeah, and actually the accuracies of these two teams are extremely close. Scala matching Kites, or just being just above him, and Sankansuki being just above Gonzalou. But that difference from that miss is really showing right now.
Yeah, even with the miss though, it is still quite close considering. We'll have to see if Australia can hold on to the accuracies here. So it looks like that no one's doing any major drops, but Kite is slowly
There's a lot of
dropping
flashing right now.
Yeah, it's still
Chile does
really
have
close.
a small lead now, even with that break, which is kind of surprising, though it was at the beginning of the map, which is arguably one of the best places. And Kites with a miss right there is going to seal that, or likely going to seal that in favor of
Yeah, they have to
Chile.
take something really extreme here, and it's not going to happen. Looks like Chile's going to take the first point on their own pick there.
Despite the early mistake by Scalum, they were able to hold themselves together for the rest of the chart, whereas Australia wasn't quite able to keep it there.
Yeah,
The difference,
the
you
ratios.
can really see that Sankansuki, Gonzalou, and Scalum all had relatively comparable ratios, but Kite's fallen a bit behind, and then that miss on top of it.
Yeah, and also the 200 count coming into play as well.
Yes, and the bot does say it's Chile's pick, but it is Australia's pick. The abort kind of messes with the bot that we use for this. So Australia's next pick, maybe they'll end up going for like Iyohoi here. I don't know how comfortable Australia is with long notes, but given that Chile already banned a long note release chart, Iyohoi seems like a solid pick, and they do end up going for Iyohoi.
I think that Kite's pretty confident on LN. He definitely was for 4K in general. And I think Evios might also be a confident LN player, so they might see him swapping in.
Yeah, and I mean, like, usually when we're talking about Mania and a player plays both 4 key and 7 key, it's hard to compare the two different key modes and how the skill sets like connect between the two. But I think long notes is an interesting one to bring up because if you're good at long notes in 4 key, you at least have some amount of finger independence, which is something that's extremely important for 4 key LNs and something that's also very, very important for 7 key LNs. So usually if you can see a lot of comparisons between the long note skills of 4 key players and then their ability and then tying that to perhaps 7 key. But although what you see more often is that being good at 7 key can lend itself to being good at 4 key long notes just because you already have that foundation of finger independence that you get from just playing 7 key in general.
Yeah, looks like we're not going to see Evio swap in. It's just going to be Sankan again. Might just be because of accuracy reasons, because Sankan's accuracy obviously compares quite well to the Chile players.
Right at the beginning we're seeing accuracy is very comparable, but Sankansuki already finding a break now.
That's
2
very
breaks
difficult.
actually.
Oh, that's not good for Australia. It's going to be really difficult to come back from that. They're going to hope for, I think, they're going to need quite a few breaks from either both players or a lot from one player to come back from that.
Oh, but Sankansuki just doesn't seem very comfortable on these long notes, and Kite's also finding a break on the LNs. Australia does not seem to be particularly comfortable with this pick, probably just assuming that Chile wasn't very comfortable on it at all, and hoping that they would end up making more mistakes than they would. Gonzalez did break earlier, but just him breaking will not be nearly enough for Australia to make a comeback in this map.
Yeah, they need Skalm to break quite a lot and a lot of accuracy drops to happen, but I just don't see that happening right now because the map's about halfway through and Skalm's still holding a 99.58 accuracy and the full combo.
Some small accuracy drops coming from Skalm now, dropping down to the 99.3, but Sankansuki and Kite's both dropping at the same time, which is just going to extend the lead that Chile has right now. An interesting update from the other match as well. USA versus Japan. US did win their next pick, but Japan has won their first pick, bringing it 2-1. And
so close match there.
Yeah.
The match is pretty interesting because the first map was decided by about 1,000 points, so it could really be 2-1 or 1-2 either way.
Yeah. But with that, Chile does take their second point in the match. But going back to sort of talking about Japan versus the United States, that sort of reminds me of something I said earlier before the two matches even started, where a lot of the teams are just really close together in terms of skill. And we can already see clearly that in the Japan versus United States match, where it's a top seed versus a low seed, that really anything can happen. Mistakes can be made by teams, especially in these group stage maps where mistakes are everything. One miss could mean the difference between winning a map and losing it.
Yeah, the combination of the short maps, so there's less notes to hit, and also the fact that there's only 2 players now, a single player can single-handedly decide the outcome of a match if they make mistakes often. So
and I mean,
any miss that you have is really kind of amplified a lot more than 3v3 with 3-minute maps, for example.
And I mean, it's not even just as that. When you look at group stage maps, a lot of the time not a lot of the time, every time they're consistently the easiest maps of the entire tournament, and they're at a difficulty at which most, if not all, of the players in the tournament can handle at a very high level. So even low seeds will have a major opportunity to take points from even the best teams, because the skill gap at this level of play is so much smaller than when the map pools get to the point where they're like semis or finals level.
Yeah. We're going to see, I believe, Australia picking Nageki no Ki here.
I believe this is actually Chile. This
Was it Chile?
Chile's pick. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. My bad. This is the faster map of the pool. It's, I believe, the fastest at 191 BPM, other than the tiebreaker, which is just a bit over 200.
And back to the Japan versus United States match. Japan takes a break point off of the U.S. It is now 2-2 in that match.
Neck and neck at the moment. Some really high scores also coming out from the players there. MVP blasted at 990K.
But if we look at this current match we're looking at, Chile does come out to a small lead at the moment. Sankan's bit weaker accuracy than everyone else.
Quite close here. It's only Sankansugi's act that's kind of lacking a bit, a few 200s here and there.
Ooh, but Kite's starting to drop a few 200s in this faster section. Actually, everyone's starting to drop a little bit of accuracy, but Chile is definitely holding up stronger than the Australian team.
Yeah, that score difference is just getting a slight bit bigger as the match goes on. And the accuracies on the Australian team just dropping a tiny bit more than the Chilean side.
Though something interesting to note is that any amount of breaking can determine this match. Even though Chile seems to have a pretty solid lead, they're still very close together, meaning a drop could just mean everything.
Ooh.
And like
they're dropping Sankan there.
Yeah.
I think that's going to seal it for Australia unless something extreme happens. It doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Chile takes their third point, and going back to Australia's pick, they are now picking for this match. They gotta hope that they can somehow take something from Chile if they want a chance.
It's difficult to know where to go after that. You play like the speed map, and you see that their accuracy is just still on point, even on those faster maps. You see LN, they still did quite well. So I'm not too sure where you go after that.
Looks like Australia's going to go with Loving Trip, the easiest map in the pool by a bit of a margin. Yeah. It's just slow, basic streaming chords. It's a very vanilla chart, as some of the other commentators have mentioned. I guess this is a pretty good choice in terms of just Australia needing something to bring themselves back into it.
I think if anything, I would have gone for this.
Yeah, and if I bring up what I was saying before, where the easier maps in a tournament will cause a smaller skill gap between lower and higher ranked players, and as the maps get easier and easier, that skill gap just starts to get really, really small. So going with something like Loving Trip in the case of Australia will allow them probably the best chance and the smallest difference in skill at this level between them and Chile.
Yeah, I think Australia just has to hope that they can hold on to the accuracy, avoid the 200s. They had to focus really hard. It just because it's a simple map doesn't mean you can't drop on it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of something you sometimes hope for, is that even on the easy maps, your opponents sometimes will break, even if they're the best team in the world. There's always the possibility that breaks can happen, and one break on this map might be enough to just give the opposing team the lead.
Yeah, the tournament nerves could come into play. We're seeing Gonzalou actually dropping a bit of accuracy at the start there, which gives Australia a tiny lead at the start.
An update from the Japan versus United States match. United States does win that next map, which was Japan's pick, bringing it 3-2 in United States' favor and on United States' pick, so they have free reign on whatever they want to play. But anything is still possible. That could be a tiebreaker match waiting to happen. But looking at this match again, there's a bit of an accuracy discrepancy between Scallum and the other two Australians. That small amount of accuracy improvement giving Chile a very small lead, about 3,000 points right now.
Yeah, Kite's dropping a bit of accuracy there.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Ooh,
miss
and
from
a miss
Kites.
from Kites. Not going to be good for Australia. That might end up being a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, the tournament nerves.
We'll be playing more.
And also the lead's just getting bigger and bigger here. And the
it's
map
hard.
is so short.
It's hard to see a team like Chile dropping this late into the map too. Even though we have said anything can happen, it's not particularly common. So, and with that, I think Chile is going to take their 4th point in the match and winning their match against Australia. And since Chile already played against Sweden earlier on, I believe they won against Sweden.
Yeah.
That means that Chile is guaranteed the #1 spot in their group. And when Australia and Sweden face each other in their group stage match, that will be determining the second player to move on into the bracket stage.
Yep. Unfortunately for Australia, it just wasn't quite enough. Although they might have a bit better luck against Sweden. The accuracy seems quite strong though.
Yeah. Definitely a strong performance. Congratulations to Chile for winning. Australia still has another match, so they still have the opportunity to make it into round 16. But we are going to switch to Japan versus the United States. As we were talking about it, 3-2 in favor of the U.S. right now in Harajuku, Iyohoi. Currently, I believe U.S. is leading in it.
Yeah, I'm just switching over right now.
All off of the back of a miss that was by Ausen. But the accuracy is very strong on the United States side, with Ausen also being 1% behind both of the US players. Though it is interesting to note that Quisalid 4 has higher accuracy than both of the United States players.
Yeah, it looks like there was actually, it might just be on my end, but it looks like 2 of the players dropped. Never mind, it was on my end, it just updated. I had people on 900 combo. Yeah,
the only one on 900 combo right now is Ausen. So he missed earlier on in the map. But Quisalid following up with a miss of his own, giving the US a massive lead now.
Yeah.
Coming to the last quarter of the match.
Not looking too good for Japan here. The lead's just getting larger and larger, and it looks like both the US players holding onto their combo quite strong. There is a bit of accuracy, Quasid is holding on quite strong comparatively in ACK, but the combo difference, it makes up a small percentage of the score, but it's still relevant. Another miss there.
Yeah, Japan, despite putting up a very good fight on the map, on 2 of the maps before, US does take their 4th point and winning this match, which actually I believe concludes this group. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
I know the US is done. They're now 2-0 in their group. So Japan and Russia still need to play each other. And since both of them lost against the United States, this is Japan versus Russia is another match that will be determining the second player in this group to move on to the round of 16. But with that, that is the last match of this group.
Yeah, it is the last match. The next match is at 11 o'clock UTC, which is...
That's in 8 or 9 hours?
Yeah. I can't do math. It's about 8.5.
Alright, yeah. So we will be coming back on stream in 8.5 hours, which... What match is starting in that one?
Let me just quickly check. It will be Indonesia versus Malaysia.
Alright.
And I believe also the other match for that group, Russia versus Japan.
Okay, so those 2 matches will be coming up, and then streamed will be 3 other matches right after in that same block, which will be Philippines versus Italy, France versus South Korea, and Poland versus Indonesia. Or as some people like to call it, Poland versus inverse Poland. But yeah, with that is the end of the group. It has been a pleasure commentating with you. Congratulations to the United States and Chile for winning their respective matches, and good luck to all of the teams in their future matches, since all 4 of the teams that we watched will actually be playing in further matches, whether that be in round of 16 or in the case of the losers, they still have group stage matches to go, which actually do determine their fate in this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you tune in 8.5 hours, and I'll see you then.